Hard Times with a Twist by Paul Speller, with apologies to Mr. C.J.H. Dickens. In a certain Manx town, for which there is no need to name, there was a plain, monolithic school building, the monotonous shape of which reflected the life of its daily incumbents. Our story begins at an indeterminate time at the institution, whose leadership opined was the future, but for others, it felt the methods practiced within were rooted in a past better left behind. The name of the school, attracting our attention, is the Gradgrind Academy of Learning. On the day in question, the top table in the Academy's dining hall was populated with top hats, Tynwald top hats. This top brass had been invited to admire the effectiveness of the institution's methods. The top hats tucked into a feast of facts, garnished by a rich gravy administered from a train-shaped dispenser. A small child approached the table of Tynwald top hats, offering up an empty bowl. He spoke courageously.
"Please, sirs and ma'ams, could I have some more?"
One top hat was so outraged he nearly spilled his dessert. Not to be trifled with, this tumultuous top hat demanded,
"Have you got £2.45?
The boy shook his head.
Then be gone!
The boy shuffled away, to be replaced by another approaching academic. This emissary arrived with a confident, square-bashed step not normally seen in the academy. He held out his cap, which was hooped in magenta and black, with the name Alfie stitched into the lining.
Please, sirs, could we have another £30 million?
The top hats appeared aghast.
It's to add some tusks onto a white elephant we've been building in England.
The top hats made such sounds as to suggest this was a request with which they could not agree wholeheartedly, before confirming subsequently it was entirely acceptable. After all, it wasn't their money. Alfie's self-assured departure was interrupted briefly by the ping of a paper pellet on the back of his neck. He spotted well-known upstart Larry Cooper placing a catapult on the table. A gloved hand lifted the catapult and passed it to a doubting Thomas. The following day, Cornelius Slant, head teacher of the Gradgrind Academy of Learning, prepared confidently for his morning routine. The principled principal was unencumbered with the doubt that caused mortal educators to pause. Reflection was not for this champion of education. He surveyed the massed military ranks of internees, known to their parents as children, as they lined up and awaited confirmation of the tucked-inness of their shirts and preparedness of pencil cases. Only then could they be proclaimed ready to learn.
"You boy,"
Slant demanded of one child.
"fasten your top button. How do you expect to learn with a loose collar?"
The boy, wisely mute, arranged the button, resisting the urge to scratch the itch it caused. Fidgeting was, naturally, forbidden. After adding a penalty point to the juvenile delinquent's growing criminal record, Slant reminded the ranks of the importance of not being late for lessons and the symbiotic dangers of choosing to start an illness in term time. One of the form tutors observing the ceremony, Miss Wants to Teach, checked the time concerned the daily inspection, and proselytization might delay the children in reaching their actual classrooms, jeopardizing their opportunity to be ready to learn. Summer turned to autumn, autumn turned to winter, and energy bills turned to horror stories. Passing seasons brought harder times. The top hats contemplated paying for their own carriage parking spaces to cut costs. Fortunately, they avoided such calamity by cutting back in less critical areas. The same austerity affected Slant and his school, with only enough money to pay for 4 letters in the new sign for the Gradgrind Academy of Learning. GAOL. Fortunately, Slant liked acronyms in education. Another drastic measure came when the school's detention zone became so full of children wearing the wrong shoes that he was forced to direct the latest adolescent idler to a destination first volunteer workforce to carry out tasks the government had stopped bothering with. One morning, when the academy's internees were in their classrooms, a small figure shuffled painfully towards the school entrance. It was Tim Tiny, an infected adolescent returning to school even though he wasn't feeling quite up to the task. The risk of spreading harmful germs or causing himself greater ills was overshadowed after his parents were informed his attendance had fallen beneath 95%. His dedication in dragging himself to school was rewarded with the automatic application of a penalty point for being late. This was the final straw for Miss Wants to Teach. Like a ghost of lessons yet to come, she descended upon Slant and gave warning over the increasingly authoritarian regime.
We condemn our students for matters that are not within their control,
She declared.
We care so much about attendance, children fear becoming ill, and we risk ignoring their well-being. Does a minor uniform transgression stop you learning? Not to mention, some clothing rules seem a little awkward to police.
The head teacher started to interject, but he remembered his own rule about never interrupting a teacher.
We impose blanket restrictions on classroom behaviours, even how to sit. We seem to hate individuality. Pupils think we care about trivialities more than bullying. It seems there's more focus on finding fault than celebrating achievement.
Slant responded.
Miss Wants to Teach, you clearly have a long way to go before you become a champion educator.
Her retort was severe.
I became a teacher to make champions of our children, not of myself.
For the first time in years, Slant began to reflect on whether he was right. Increasingly haunted by Miss Wants to Teach's words, Slant went to discuss his doubts with the top hats.
I've started to wonder whether what we're doing in schools is always best for the children,
he said.
Do attendance campaigns help those with physical illness or mental health problems? Are we doing enough to support young people facing a wide range of challenges, or are we forcing them to behave like drones?
The top hats exchanged bemused glances. The previously tumultuous top hat said,
But these methods mean we don't have to supply proper teaching resources or provide better buildings. That's surely a good thing. For us, anyway.
Another top hat added,
Grumpy letters about uniforms or toilets give people someone other than politicians to be angry with.
Slant was taken aback so far as to find himself in the real world.
What about the children?
He asked. A magenta and black top hat proclaimed,
Arm's length teaching is the future. One size fits all across the schools allows us bigger classes and fewer teachers. Everyone's a winner.
Except the children, the head teacher's conscience told him. Magenta and black top hat continued.
We probably only need one head teacher for all our secondary schools. Perhaps you should look for another job. Maybe a consultant.
For a moment, Cornelius Slant froze, a statue without a plinth. Eventually, he left, a wiser man. Meanwhile, the top hats retired to a private chamber to decide matters too important to be dealt with publicly.